Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today, I'm talking to Cassandra Juniphant, who is a wife, mother, and the founder of Ori Ara, which is a self-care company dedicated to empowering modern women with traditional wellness practices. A former HR executive, Cassandra's journey began over a decade ago when she transformed her health through bodybuilding and discovered the profound connection between self-care, professional success, and spirituality. She became a certified trainer, yogi, gym owner, and student of nutrition and martial arts. And today she uses her expertise to help others elevate their well-being and make self-care an integral part of every day. I love this conversation. Cassandra and I really resonated on so many different things. My personal journey began in fitness in a very different way than Cassandra's, but fitness for me, I kind of say fitness saved my life because it completely changed the trajectory of where I was headed and where I was and how I perceived myself and my self-worth and all those things. And so I really credit movement, and it doesn't have to be going to the gym and lifting weights, but I really credit movement and getting into my body as literally something that changed and saved my life. And so this podcast episode is so good. We talk about self-care, what it is, what the difference between, redefining discipline, strength, because something that I love that we touched on here is that, and something I've seen it on Instagram, there's like reels and things like that, but it's like if you have a strong woman, she's really soft underneath kind of energy, right? Where it's like you think about, like we talk about ballerinas, right? You think about ballerinas, you think about any sort of like gymnasts, anything that is more even feminine flow, like bodies, like yoga, Pilates. The strength required to really do those things is amazing. And so my goal has always been to be strong versus to look a certain way. And I love that reframe. That's really helped me over my years with my fitness journey because let's be honest, I'm a Taurus. And so I love to eat. I love food. And so it's kind of always been not a struggle. I don't want to say it's been a struggle, but I think when you're getting stuck in comparison and all of the things, I think we all have body image issues on some level. And I don't mean that everybody has issues with their body, but I just mean that I think as a human being, we look around in magazines and in TV and movies and all these different outlets of like how the body should look. And I'm air quoting that, but I've really come through this journey to really love and appreciate and accept my body. And, over the last year, we talk about that in this episode too, but over the last year, I've been really, I'm going to say bad about getting to the gym. I've been moving in other ways. I really haven't been as committed as I have been in the past. I used to go to the gym like 6 days a week because I had to maintain a certain look, I guess. And it's really, really transformed over the last year. And my body, because I haven't gone to the gym as much or lifted weights in the same way, my body has definitely changed. And I've learned to really love the way that it looks now because I feel like for me, it's really kind of, I almost want to say it's kind of put me more in my feminine when I'm able to flow in the way that I move and run when it feels good and not have to be in this super hyper masculine. And, Cassandra talks about her past in bodybuilding and how, maybe it sounds hyper masculine, but it actually really got her in touch with her feminine side because it was a lot of pageantry and things like that. So I'm not saying that just because, you lift weights or whatever, it makes it more masculine. It's a whole conversation that we do get into here, but all I'm saying is that being more in flow with myself, accepting my body in maybe the way it changes and a little bit more curvy, it has helped me get more in touch with my feminine side. And I've been saying that, over the last, probably the last year, more and more so, I've gotten in touch with the side of myself. I'm a manifesting generator. I have so much fixed fire energy in my chart that I'm normally just like go and initiatory and all these things. And so I'm really learning to embody my design, right? I'm learning how to flow with my own energy and really leaning into my feminine side. That energy of like, yes, I can still initiate, I can still go fast. And also, I can also be in my flow. I can also be feminine. I can also be more graceful and compassionate and have all these qualities that really are part of me, but I felt like I resisted or shoved down or avoided for a long time in my life because it wasn't expected isn't the word I'm looking for, but it wasn't the standard or valued maybe is what I'm looking for. And so, I've just like really been in this beautiful place lately. And again, I love this conversation with Cassandra. It was so good. Like I said, we resonated on a lot of the parts of our journeys, so in very different ways, but coming into the body. And if you've been here for a while, if you know my whole thing, I'm a holistic human design coach with a focus on embodiment. And my whole thing, I'm all about the body. I feel like my whole life I've been very rooted in the material and the physical and the body. And so my challenge has been more so extending beyond that, but coming into myself and into my body has been such a beautiful journey, and really appreciating it, right? Where before I would be in it, but maybe, when I was drinking or not eating the best, it's just transformed. That relationship has transformed is what I'm trying to say. And so again, this conversation was so great. This week, I don't know about you, but I've been exhausted. It's already feeling kind of intense because we have so much going on. We have Mercury at 0 degrees going back into Aries. We have Neptune at 0 degrees. Going back into Pisces. Neptune is at 0 degrees going into Aries. So they kind of like almost strangers in the night. That's the term I'm looking for. Strangers in the night. They meet up at 29 degrees of Pisces. Mercury obviously going one way, Neptune going the other way. And then we have our new moon solar eclipse on Saturday. And so there's so much going on. So much has been coming up, and I feel more equipped to handle it. I think just because I've been doing a lot more somatic practices, I've been doing some Kundalini meditations. I've really been grounding myself, and I've really been supporting myself, and I've been leading into the tarot to support me and really doing the work to rewire the beliefs that are coming up. It's just this phase of my life, I don't really know what's on the other side of it, other than I just have this blind faith and belief that it's all going to work out and it's going to be fine. It's been this like trust fall, right? It's kind of almost been like the Fool card in the tarot, where it's like you're just stepping off the ledge and you don't know what's there, but you're happy to do it. And your little, dog is is following you along. And it just sort of feels like a very, like a Fool moment, I guess. And also bigger, I could get into the tarot and I'm learning about it, and it's been so beautiful, but I don't want to go too deep into that. Maybe I'll do a whole podcast episode. Maybe we'll get and I actually do have tarot readers that I've interviewed that are coming up pretty soon. So side note, it's coming, because I've just been so passionate and excited and lit up by learning the depth of what it holds, because I've always been one where I'll pull a card and I'm like, I don't know what this means. And then I get the book and I look at the book and then I'm like, okay, on to the next thing. And it's really been a practice now of like deepening my own knowledge and leaning into myself and trusting myself and seeing what comes up for me. And so it's been beautiful. And I've really, again, been leaning into that to support me, to move through, to rewire subconscious beliefs. And every time these limiting beliefs or shadows come up, I'm just kind of reframing them of like, no, I'm learning. I'm not failing. I'm learning. Or I might not know what the future holds, but that doesn't have to be my truth, right? Like what other people or the stories I took before, my old narrative, doesn't have to be my truth now, right? I get to choose. And so it's been a really interesting phase, a really beautiful phase. And there are moments where I kind of like freak out, but I'm able to quickly come in, regulate myself, right? Come back to this place. I have noticed that I am feeling more resistant to certain things that maybe I wasn't before. And I'm trying to understand if that is shadows, if that's self-sabotage, or if that's just a no. Because I think sometimes it can be tricky, right? I think I understand what my intuition is now, but there are times where when I feel resistance, I'm like, am I just self-sabotaging? Because it is sneaky, it is tricky. And so anyway, just discerning what's what sort of sometimes when it comes up. And I don't know. I hope that you're finding ways to ground yourself if this is a intense week for you. And I will be back next week with a solo. Enjoy the episode with Cassandra. It is really, really a great episode. I hope that you love it. Holistic Human Design Academy is available. I am enrolling for April 7th is when our the new live round begins. I'm so excited. So if you've been thinking about it, if you're on the edge, you want to reach out, DM me on Instagram, send me an email. All the links are down below, so you can get in there as well. And go follow Cassandra and let us know on Instagram. Share, tag us, let us know what you thought about the episode, let us know what resonates, and I will catch you back here next week. Welcome to the podcast. Today I have Cassandra Juniphant, who is a self-care alchemist and author. And this topic is so fascinating to me. It's so huge. And I think it's something that we kind of misconstrue sometimes or misunderstand maybe like what self-care is. And I think especially as women, it's kind of harder to embody that. But we're going to get into all of it. So I'll just start with asking you if you are familiar with your human design and astrology, and if you're comfortable sharing it, if you're open to letting the listeners know, and then just anything about your story, kind of anything pivotal that got you to where you're at today, and then we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, so I'm into all of the things, right? My necklace actually is my sun, moon, rising.
Oh, I love
I'm a
that.
Scorpio sun, a Pisces moon, and a Capricorn rising. But I'm so heavily indexed on Scorpio. I've got a Scorpio stellium.
Mm,
I've got like, it's just ridiculous how scorpionic I
yeah.
am. And then in terms of human design, I'm a 6'2", and that's all that I know. I'm not clear on the gates and on the other things, but I just
Mm-hmm.
know that I'm a 6'2".
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so my the short version of my story and how I got here today is that, like many women, I struggled to lose the baby weight with my youngest. And I literally stumbled into bodybuilding, believe it or not. I accidentally stumbled on bodybuilding.com and I was like, oh my gosh, these women look fantastic. How did they do that? So I found a coach. I fell in love. I ended up competing for 5 years as a bodybuilder before going pro in 2016. And I literally fell in love with everything I was learning about my body. I went down the rabbit hole. So I became a certified personal trainer, yoga instructor, studied martial arts. I competed for a little while, owned a gym, studied nutrition, supplements. I mean, when I tell you, like, I woke up to the fact that I had a body. And you would think having kids did that, but for whatever reason, that wasn't my catalyst. It was bodybuilding that was my catalyst. And I remember one day I was getting ready for a show in the gym and it was peak week. And peak week is when, as a bodybuilder, you are intentionally dehydrated so that your muscles pop. You're not eating very many carbs, so I'm kind of hangry. I was just like dying in this grueling workout. And I got a download loud and clear, that this is what we came for. Spirit spoke to me and said, this is what we came for. And it all clicked, like literally instantly, that the ache in my lungs, the burning of my muscles, the sweat on my body was all so fucking beautiful because the divine got to experience it through me. And having a body is what we came for. And so from that moment on, it all took on new meaning to me. While everyone else was like, oh my gosh, your abs. Oh my gosh, your trophies. I was like, that's great. But something really magical is happening inside of me. Like I'm changing, like I'm different inside. And what you see is simply the overflow from the transformation internally. And then fast forward to 2021, and I should also say that this was all my side hustle. So I had been in human resources for 20 years as an executive, as a single mother. Everything I mentioned about the body was my side hustle. And I also noticed during that time that my career was going like this. Like I was getting the promotions, I was getting raises, I was making money, I was doing well in the corporate world. And I know that's 100% because of my health and well being. I showed up to myself first, which allowed me to give from my overflow and show up to my team and my corporation and grow a career that I'm really, really proud of. But fast forward to 2021, I get laid off. And it never occurred to me to go get a job. This was like pandemic era. And I felt uniquely positioned with my 20 years at that point in human resources and 10 years at that point in health and fitness to help the world. This was the first time some of us were talking about our health and well being. And it was during COVID that self care made a resurgence. That's when all of a sudden everyone was talking about self care again. And I sat back and watched what was happening. And I'm like, that's BS, though. That's not self care. Like,
Mm.
let's really, talk about self care. And my company, Ori Ara, has seen many or iterations over the last almost 4 years now. But what she is today is a self care company, really striving to return the potency and the meaning to self care. And so, what we do as a company is return traditional wellness to modern women. We don't make it complicated or reinvent the wheel. We're doing the old school and it's working.
I love that. I got full body chills when you were talking about that download, right? Because I resonate to your story. In like for me, I feel like my journey began in fitness. It wasn't bodybuilding. I wasn't extreme like that, but it was just I had my second child and same thing. I couldn't lose the baby weight. And I was like, I hadn't worked out since like my early 20s before my daughter was born. And yeah, I was in a really bad relationship. And I literally started going to the gym just to get myself and my kids out of my house so we didn't have to be in the environment. And then
Yeah.
just like slowly, right, that like confidence. And I started losing a little bit of weight. And then it was like the fog cleared, right? And I could
Yeah.
see my situation for what it was. And I was
Yeah.
empowered to then pack everything up. And we're like, I can't live this life anymore. And so it completely changed my life. And, work movement for me has just been my like I don't know, when I go to the gym it's like I that's when I have my creativity spikes, all my downloads come, I'm running and I'm just like, so I definitely resonate in that sense where it's like it's so much more than just about like the looks, the aesthetics of it, right? Something inside happens that is incredible. And I think sometimes it's hard to, I guess if you don't experience it, right, it's hard to like explain it. But yeah, I think that's incredible that sort of was the thing that kind of turned everything.
100%. And it's the ultimate, if kind of
Mm-hmm.
experience. And I'm here to get women to be willing to find out, right? Or at least
Yeah.
develop a curiosity, because you see the people who talk about it like us have done it for a while, look a certain type of way, probably intimidating to a certain degree, and women don't relate or don't feel like they can relate, and so they're like, oh, that's easy for you, and create a million and one different explanations in their mind as to why why that works and you get that, but that's just not me. And I'm like, no, I promise you, sis, it is. I
Yeah.
promise you it is. Like, let's go.
Yeah. And I know, I think like so many things, it's like we see the end result and we think that it was
Yeah.
just easy to get there, it just happened
Yeah.
overnight. But I mean, I know the journey to making that a consistent practice is hard,
Yeah.
right? It's
It's
like showing up every day and putting on your sneakers when you don't want to. I mean, I still struggle with it. I'm this 2024 for whatever reason was really challenging for me to get into the gym. So I found different ways to move, whether it was just going for a walk or doing gym. So yoga, like it didn't have to be weightlifting and running, 5 miles a day or whatever. So that's been just kind of reframing that story, I guess.
yes.
But so with that, how do you get people to see that? Or rather, maybe the question is like, how do we overcome that self sabotage of like, we can't do it or it's too hard? Or in those moments when the last thing you want to do is go to the gym, but you go, right? Like, how do we kind
Yeah.
of get
Yeah.
past
Well,
that?
oh my gosh, you said so many great things. I'll start. Okay, let me answer your question first, but I
Mm,
do want to circle back to that idea that you don't have to go to the gym, like,
yeah.
and the fact that you walked it. Well, let me just go ahead and finish that
Yeah.
thought, because my 2024 was the exact same,
Mm,
ironically. The exact same. I'm newly married, moved to a new town, new everything, and new job, like literally everything. And the gym just wasn't working for me. And I'm a gym girly. Like,
mm,
I am the quintessential gym girly, but it just wasn't working. And what I did was give myself grace. I gave myself grace, and I fell in love with my 6 a.m. sunrise walks. I walk for 30 minutes every morning. And that was kind of like the extent of my workouts. And then during the day, sometimes I find time to go do like 30 to 45 minutes of yoga. But for all of 2024, the bodybuilder, the gym girly, I walked and I did yoga. And it was such a marvel. Like, it was one of those things where, as a personal trainer and someone who's owned a gym and trained women, I know walking and yoga are valid, effective forms of working out. But I was a heavy lifter. You know
mm,
what I mean? Like, I kind of was a little, I don't know. I revered, that aspect of myself. And so, but it was really like, okay, put your money where your mouth is. Is that a valid form of exercise? Will you do it? And I was like, hell yeah, I will. Let me see what this is about. And so it was a matter of grace, but it was also a matter of just allowing my movement to match my life, as opposed to rearranging my life to match movement, or to just do what I've always done because I've always done it. That's the
yeah.
worst reason to do anything, is because you've always done it that way. And I recognize that. And so 2024 for me as well was this opportunity to allow myself grace, try something new, really be a testament for what I know to be true and what I've preached to women, and to embody a new energy. And I really did discover a whole new energy living in my body as a result of doing yoga and walking as opposed to heavy lifting, which can be a whole nother conversation. But that leads me to answer your question to women who just don't feel like it and they don't, have the energy or the motivation. I say then don't, actually. And again, I'm talking as someone who's a gym girly. What I have found in my work with women is that it's no wonder. It's no wonder, and it's natural that we don't have the motivation, the inspiration, and energy to hit the gym consistently because we are dramatically undernourished. And so, for someone who's just starting on their health and fitness journey, the women who don't know if you know yet because they haven't given themselves that opportunity, for you guys, don't even worry about the gym. The number one thing you can do to get healthy that will change your health immediately, and I mean overnight, is get a good night's rest. Go to bed, get some sleep. Do that consistently for a while. After you've gotten some sleep consistently for a while, hydrate. Drink water, drink it lavishly, drink it in abundance. And after you've done that for a little bit, eat some high vibrational foods, eat greens, seasonal fruits and vegetables. Once we've nourished our body, then it's going to crave movement. Then you can't stop it from moving. I mean, that's kind of what I believe is part of, what's behind little kids' energy. You go into a kindergarten class and they're bopping all over the place. Their little bodies can't handle all the energy in them. And so they're bopping around. But think about how we take care of kids. We make sure they go to bed on time. We make sure they carry their water bottles. They've got the cutest little water bottles, like with them all the time. They're eating fruits and vegetables. We make them eat their vegetables. And that's why they have so much energy in their little bodies, is because they're well nourished and nurtured. And we're the same as adults, but we don't give ourselves that same nurturing. And so for women who are starting, who are like, I just can't, then I'm like, don't. I'm not surprised you feel that way. Your body's not ready. It's just not. You'll get there. But I say start with the simple things. Again, traditional wellness for modern women. Start with rest, start with water, start with high vibrational foods. And I promise you, after 3 or 4 weeks of that, no one's gonna be able to stop you from going to the gym.
Yeah. I love that. Of all the conversations I have on the podcast, it's always these simple things. I feel like everybody's looking for this complicated, like, aha, like thing that's going to change their life, but it's really like starting small and starting simple. And it naturally like comes into flow, and you talk about kids and not comparing kids to dogs, but like kids naturally want to be outside too, right? And I think just being outside is huge. And this past week where I live, it was like, 10 degrees and below, and then it hit 30 and my dog was outside all day. And I'm like, it is cold, but she just sat in the sun for like 8 hours of the day and it was freezing, but she just sat there, and I with kids too, there comes a point where they're like, they want to go outside, they want to be outside. And so that also, like you talk about just starting in the simple ways. And I think once you're nourishing your body in a way that feels good, then you'll naturally want to go outside. And like you said, it just kind of like all, not spirals, but I mean, I guess that's the word. It kind of flows from that.
Yeah, 100%. My mentor taught me this many years ago, and it just clicked. And I share now with everybody that, health is wholeness. And when we think about getting healthy, what is the first thing we often think about? We often think about going on a diet program or an exercise program or both, right?
Mm-hmm.
But health is wholeness. Health means wholeness. You cannot cut or diet your way to wholeness. The only way to get to wholeness is to add to nourish. And so the things that I mentioned, rest, hydration, and high vibrational foods, are something that I want us to consume in abundance to bring us to that wholeness. And what I say is that, when you consume enough of the good stuff, you'll soon find out over time, you just don't have room, energy, or interest in the not so good stuff. And then, yes, they build on each other to the point where your body's bubbling with energy. And maybe it's not going to the gym, but maybe it's taking that walk, right? Or maybe it is joining the Zumba class or the yoga class, or, taking your kids to whatever sport they're playing and you're active while you're waiting for them instead of, eating and networking with the other parents or whatever the case may be. But I find that it really starts with nourishment. And you're right, it's small, simple, micro habits that have always worked since the beginning of time that I really want us to revisit.
Yeah. And I love that you said that. I studied holistic health. And one of the things that they said during my 2-year program of that was kind of what you just said, right? It's adding to it. It's not Because I think that the diet mindset and I can't have this, I've been vegan for like 15 years now. And I'm not saying that's the best diet ever, but like, that's just my lifestyle at this point. But a lot of people are like, you can't have this, you can't have that. And I'm like, no, I choose to consume this rather than that. Because for me, that's more supportive of, the way that and so applying that to a diet where it's like, or not a diet, just a lifestyle change. It's like adding in maybe an extra thing of broccoli instead of going back for a second helping of mashed potatoes, right? It's adding in those small things that I completely agree. And I think that needs to be like highlighted here. It is adding, not taking away. You're not removing 100%. Anything from your life,
No, 100%. I always say the truth about nutrition is abundance. Your body is not going to reward you for restriction. It just isn't.
Yeah.
And, that mindset is really debilitating in so many ways. I mean, just starting with health and fitness, you've probably seen this in the gym, that women are such in this diet, cut mentality. And then they lose the weight and then they wonder why they're flabby, or they wonder why they don't have a butt, or they wonder why like their body isn't sculpted to the way they thought it was going to by dieting down. And it's because actually to build muscle, you need to add. It's eating over maintenance, right? So that your muscles have something to eat and take in to build themselves with. But it's such, excuse my French, but it's such a mind fuck for women when they go from dieting and then realizing I don't like how I look or feel, just thinner, just smaller. As opposed to what I really wanted was a toned, strong, fit, healthy looking. Well, that's not a diet mentality. It's actually an abundance mentality. But no one's talking about that because it's so easy to sell diet programs and diet everything, right? But then just in general, as a woman, we need to be in a receiving energy to receive, to receive. I mean, the blessings that we want, the relationship that we want, the money that we want, the community that we want, they're all things that we have to be open and willing to receive. It's not a cut and restrict and limit mindset. It's an abundance mindset. And I find that, if we can start here, and I believe, the physical is what allowed for me the spiritual to grow. Like we say, as above, so below, as above, as within is without, as what is without is within. And I think, sometimes it can be hard to start as above. I'm a spiritual girly. I believe in all of the spiritual woo-woo super, which I'm sure we'll get to, things. But sometimes that can be hard, or you feel weird about it. So if you can't do the as above, do the so below. The so below is the abundance of eating. Eat fruits and vegetables in abundance. Don't worry about the sucrose from the fruits right now. Don't worry about that. Just eat them in abundance. Don't worry about the starchy carbs, the carbs in the vegetables. Just eat them in abundance right now. Get used to consuming a lot. And you start that so below, it trickles as above. And I promise you, it does reciprocate. It's a symbiotic relationship. And all of the good things will be given unto you. I promise.
Yeah. Well, and like you said in the beginning, I love that, where it's like, that saying, like, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And I think that we're so focused on chasing the spiritual, right, that we forget this. And so I love that idea of just like giving yourself abundance and allowing yourself to consume that. And kind of going back a little bit to our, like, I feel like both of our parallel like fitness journeys in 2024, I feel like not being in the gym in that way all the time, like I used to be, really allowed me to connect with that more feminine, receptive part of me, because my body did get a little bit softer than when I was in the gym every single day. And there were moments when I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh gosh, I have to get back. But then it allowed me to accept myself more and not have to like chase that ideal as well. So I don't know if that was something you experienced and witnessed, in that journey too.
100%. I said I entered my goddess body era. Like I used to be, I was a bodybuilder. So I had curves, but they were curves made by muscle. They were just like, I was really fit, really compact, really tight. And I loved that figure. I loved that physique. I loved carrying visible muscle. Like I was like, yes, I'm her. Like I'm here for the aesthetic, right? But then when I didn't do that for an entire year, my body softened and the curves that showed up could not be stopped. They're pow, 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 pow. And I said, I'm just in my goddess body era. Like it just is. I'm not the small thing. I'm a curvier version of myself that I absolutely love. And to your point, it did allow me to enter this femininity that I didn't know that well, I kind of did. So at the end of 2023, I got married. So 2024 is my first year of marriage. We just celebrated our anniversary at the end of 2024. And there was also this desire that I had to be a more feminine wife. And he loves me as the strong, jacked woman that he met.
Mm.
But there was something in me that wanted to soften to him. And I didn't put two and two together initially, but as I was going through the year and I realized there was a different energy about me, and deciding, literally, this might sound, maybe not to you, but it might sound crazy to others, like deciding to not push weight heavier than me in a gym translated to me not pushing anything heavier in life. Like, it allowed me to work with what was, I guess, how do I say this? Like, natural to me. Doing yoga, for example, is moving your own body weight. And allowing it to be just what I was born with, just what I can carry, translated into a receptivity and a delegation of the hard things to my husband, and allowing the hard things to be over there, and being not just satisfied, but happy with just who I am, not needing to pick up hard things to prove myself, if that makes sense. Like in the
Mm.
gym, we want to push heavier and heavier weight. In life, I want to do more and more hard things to prove that I'm worthy, to prove that I'm somebody, to prove that I'm credible. And look at my certifications and my degrees and my titles and my page. Like, it's all these things outside of me. And there was something about not pushing hard weight that also allowed me to not push hard things in general and really just be in receiving mode. Yeah, I'll stop there because yeah, but
I,
that was such a thing.
yeah, I love it. I'm going to weave in astrology a little bit here, but I do think that, we're so taught to be in that like hyper masculine, right? Like business owners, lifting weights, whatever it is, that it is, and kind of translating into like relationships. I've found that journey myself where my past relation, I'm not married, but just in my dating experience over the last like year or two, it shifted from this like more hyper masculine energy where then I found men that were maybe more in their feminine. I don't know so much. It was like very non-committal and all these things that were really difficult for me in relationships, as opposed to then turning into my feminine and, like you said, allowing them to do the hard things, allowing them to like step in and be like, hey, you need help, or like even
Yeah,
asking for help. I'm like, what is
yeah,
that?
yeah,
But the astrology piece that as you were speaking to, I was thinking, with you, your son, like you said, you have a stellium, your midheavens all in Scorpio, and Scorpio is feminine, but it's also ruled by masculine signs. So it is this like finding this
Mars and Pluto.
balance. Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like finding this balance. And then your earth is in Taurus, right? Which is the opposite, which is the ultimate feminine, right? I feel like earth is, I mean, Venus, right? Aphrodite, it's all about like the body and sexuality and this feminine nature. And I'm a Taurus sun, so I have my earth in Scorpio. We're kind of flip flopped in that way.
ah,
But I think it's just this beautiful piece of the journey, right? When we can
yeah,
incorporate that and yeah, just in so many ways, find like allowing it to flow, right? And I think
yeah.
that's so important.
It is. No, it's the allowing. It is
Mm.
100% the allowing, and not trying to over orchestrate or construct. It literally is the allowing. And with all of that being said, though, I do want women to know that you're not going to be thrown into your masculine by lifting heavy weights.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's not what's going to happen. And as a matter of fact, I started a portion of my femininity journey by bodybuilding because, one, bodybuilding is a lot of pageantry. It's a lot of pageantry. It's hair, it's makeup, it's nails, it's tanning, it's body, it's being in a blinged out bikini under hot light. I mean, it's pageantry. And I didn't do any of those things before. And so I learned hair and makeup and all of that stuff by being in bodybuilding.
Mm.
And the women, the sisterhood that is lifting weights amongst women. I mean, you go to a gym bathroom and we're in there like complimenting each other and saying, "I see you. I haven't, or I haven't seen you for a couple of weeks. Where you been? I'm glad you're back." Like, there is just something about that journey we're all on together, and it's super supportive and nurturing. And I want women to know that you might see super jacked men and women who look like they're doing the thing, and they might be, but just know that once you're in there and we see you, you are automatically like family because you're there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like you're automatically family. So don't let this last little, 3 minutes
Yeah.
of our conversation distract you from lifting heavy weights, because it's a beautiful journey that I think every woman owes it to herself to go on. And I'll stop with this. I'm sorry, just talking all of everything, but the other part is that there is something. It's hard. It's hard to be graceful. It's hard to be feminine, actually, without strength, because grace and femininity is not weak and fragile. It's strong, as a matter of fact. And I like to think of it as an iron fist in a velvet glove. On the outside, I'm soft. It's soft to the touch. You want to touch me, but inside, I'm strong as fuck.
Mm.
That's what bodybuilding gives you. It gives you that iron fist. So you can be soft on the outside and carry yourself with the grace. Like when you think of a ballet dancer, she makes it look fluid, but do you know how strong
Yeah.
she is in there? That's what navigating a woman with muscle feels like. It feels like a constant ballet. It feels like true goddess energy at that intersection. And so I want women to feel inspired to go lift heavy weights. I want them to feel like, yes, I want to be strong, because it doesn't take away from your femininity, it adds to it.
Mm. I love that. Yeah. When I'm in the gym, that's ultimately my goal. It's not necessarily how I look. It's like I literally that I tell myself like I'm strong. And
Yeah.
that's what's empowering about it,
Yeah.
right? Like my body, regardless of what it looks like inside, I know that there's strength there. So I
Yes.
love that you said that.
Yes.
And, going back to sort of the gym piece, I know like for the longest time that was why I resisted going, because I just had this feeling of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing in there. People are going to look at me. And then you
Yeah.
get in and it's like, actually, nobody really cares.
No,
You know what I mean? Like nobody
not at
really
all.
cares.
And they don't know what they're doing, right?
Yeah. I feel like you're probably going in, like starting out being more judgmental than the people that are in it. Right. Because people
100%.
are more focused on, what they're doing and they're holding, however many weights. And I remember going in and I was like, oh my God, I would hear people like grunting. I was like, I'm never going to make sounds like that. And then catch myself at the first time making that noise. And I was like, well, here we are. It is what it is.
You drank the Kool-Aid. You're one
Yeah.
of the right. You're one of us.
Yeah.
But I always say like, and I remember feeling that discomfort because for my first two bodybuilding shows, I didn't go to a gym. I worked out. I kept
Mm.
buying weights at Walmart because I insisted on working out in my garage because I didn't feel good enough. Like I had all sorts of just imposter syndrome things going on. Um, but oh, should have lost my train of thought. Um, oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought about working out at home, not going to the gym. Um,
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Oh yeah, it's gone. It'll come back, I'm sure, at some point. We can
Yeah.
keep it. We can keep
That's
it
okay.
moving.
It'll come back. Yeah. I mean, so how do we go? Well, first of all, I think I mean, at least I don't know where you're going with that, but just that idea of like, you don't have to go into the gym to like lift those weights and to
Yeah.
begin that journey of getting strong. And I think that a lot of times when we like really break down our excuses, like, well, I don't have a gym membership or I don't want to go in, there's always, it's like, it is what it is, an excuse. Like, so how do we get past those excuses? Like, so we've set the foundation, right? Like we're starting to eat right, we're eating in abundance, we're moving our body, we're sleeping enough, and now it's the point where like our body is sort of like craving that movement, which I love
Yeah.
that because I really do feel like that comes so naturally when you're doing all the other things.
Yeah.
So then how do we begin that part of the journey, like actually moving our body when we feel maybe just not strong at all or it's intimidating or
Yeah.
whatever.
It's really interesting because I'm still going to say that as much as I believe in bodybuilding and I think every woman should lift weights, that it might not be the place to start. So,
Mm.
what I remember, I started bodybuilding on the heels of graduating with my MBA. And then when I was in this MBA program, everyone, and I mean everyone, did triathlons, run, bike, swim. And I hated all of those things. Still not a big fan. And I didn't know that there were things outside of that to do. As silly as that might sound, all the healthy fit people that I knew ran, biked, or swam. And because I didn't do those things, I thought that I didn't have anything to do. When I say I stumbled on bodybuilding.com, I literally fell ass backwards onto it. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's a thing. that's available to me. I can lift weights. And when I tell you that my heart leapt and I realize now that was me today telling me back then, sis, we're gonna love this. So with that call, that yearning, that pull, that's us. Happy as hell over here. So why don't you go ahead and look into that? And I did. I followed that voice, even though everyone was like, no, you're gonna look like a man, and da, 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 da. I followed that voice. And so I say that to say that when you open up your idea and you're craving movement, there's something you want to do. Don't look for permission from other people to say that that is what you should be doing.
Mm.
There's something, whether it's hula hooping, jumping rope. I met a few years ago this woman on Instagram who all she does is jump rope. That's it. She's like in her 40s and she does it really cute. And but she was just trying to lose weight, just trying to be active, and she jumped rope and she fell in love with it. While everyone else was telling her to walk, while everyone else was telling her to lift weights, everyone was in her head telling, but she loves jumping rope and she's made a whole career out of just jumping rope. And so I say, be open to whatever your heart is being called to, because it's you on the other side of that journey telling you how much you love it here.
Mm.
So just be open. Just be
Yeah.
open. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, when
Yeah.
I first started going to the gym and like lifting too, I had a friend who was like, "You're getting too big." I said, "Well, good thing I'm not you then, or good thing you're not me." I don't know. I loved my body at that point,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I do. I
Yeah.
love that too, and I think that mindset or manifestation or whatever it is that comes in, where it's like you can, like when I'm running, I'm a runner. I've been on cross country since I can remember. I love that, gets me into that state. What do they call it? Flow state, right? Where I'm just
Yeah.
like running. And
Yeah.
for me, it's like if I'm emotional or if I'm going through something, I get on the treadmill and it's not like a punishment, but it's like if I can still think about something, if I'm still worried about something, I'm not running fast enough. So it sort of like gets me out of that thing and then I can get into that space. But like
I love that.
when I'm on there, I just visualize my body. I visualize my muscles strengthening or my core being tight or whatever it is. And I think that when we're, that mindset piece, our mind is so powerful, right? It can literally make or break us in so many ways. And I think that if you're visualizing the jump rope and that's making you strong, like mind plus body will get you there,
Yeah.
And I think if you're walking and that's what gets you strong, like I think that mind piece is so huge to our physical body as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. Mindset is everything. Mindset is absolutely everything. And mindset is where I start the physical journey. So, when we talked earlier about, how to get started, I mentioned rest, hydration, and high vibrational foods. And that is absolutely the truth. But actually, like in my book and when I work with women and all of the things that I do, it starts with mindset before we even get down the path of doing anything physical.
Mm.
And there's three parts to how I define mindset. The first thing is our worthiness, knowing that you are worthy, then trusting in your ability to affect outcomes in your life, and then having the discipline to do it. And those three things, really, I think they're like the missing supplement to a health and fitness journey, because there's so many. It's hard to stay. Hard to stay consistent. It's hard to stay committed. It's hard to it's hard to create the desire to want to take care of yourself without those things, without believing that you're worthy and trusting and knowing that you have the discipline or the devotion to get it done. And so, in that example that you gave about being on the treadmill, so many people would use that as an opportunity to punish themselves, right? Like I'm doing this because I don't deserve, or I'm not worthy. I'm gonna go faster because I'm not worthy. Your mindset, and in doing that, you don't get the same results. Your mind, in understanding that you're punishing yourself versus healing yourself through running, will give you completely different results, because your mind is that powerful. You were running, understanding that you're worthy, understanding that you're healing, and letting that be, and that then manifest in the physical. Doing that exact same action with a mindset of I'm running away from, or I'm trying to punish myself because I'm not good enough, or I don't trust myself to not do, I don't know, the highest level at the fastest pace because otherwise I won't. Like, that mentality changes the results that you get. And
Mm.
so, yeah, the mindset absolutely is everything. I heard this saying once that kind of made it all clear to me, which is you can't have a happy ending to an unhappy journey. And so, like in any actions that you're doing, enjoy them. understand that there's, like in your head, be thinking about the connection to your body, be thinking about how good this is going to make you feel, be thinking all of the good things, because that affects the destination or
Yeah.
how you get to the destination, if you get to the destination.
Mm-hmm. One
Yeah.
thing I always think when I'm avoid, or I guess when I'm hesitant to go to the gym, or I'm kind of like, maybe I'm in my, I don't know, sitting on the couch or something, like I really don't want to work out today. But I always ask myself, like, will it feel better to have done this? And for like, when it comes to moving my body, 100%, you will never regret moving your body. And
No.
sometimes I'm like, even if I just get my shoes on and I walk on the treadmill for 30 minutes, at least I'm there. I've got myself
Yeah.
there. And most of the time, obviously, when I get there, then I do other things. But like,
Yeah.
it's just like getting there that I feel like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it is the
It is
biggest
putting on
hurdle.
your shoes.
Yeah.
Just put on your shoes, lace up
Yeah.
your shoes, and even if you're wearing your work clothes, just lace up your shoes, and
Mm.
it changes the energy. And one of the things for me is, like when I'm having those moments when I don't feel like it, because I still don't feel like it all the time. Even
Yeah.
after 12 years, I don't always feel like it. But what goes through my head is what you said, Isel. What am I going to regret more? Regret getting up and going and missing the work I was going to do, or the scrolling on my phone or whatever, or am I going to regret not going? And that's easy. I'm going to regret not going. So then I
Yeah.
go. That's always a good litmus test for me. Then
Yeah.
I also like to just remember that I am a goddess. Like the feminine divine is expressing through me. And when I really embody her, when I wear her, when I'm looking at the world through her lens, it's not what would Jesus do. It's like, what would my goddess do? She's going to take care of herself. And if you look at any warrior goddess movie, those women are, they're no slouches, right?
Yeah.
And I and I really approach a lot of my life with that goddess lens. Like when you really, really accept, not just understand cognitively, like up here, but when you really accept and embody that you are the feminine divine expressing in your physical form, that changes how, for me, it changed how I approached everything. The desire to move my body, what kind of foods I wanted to eat, whether or not I gave myself rest at the end of the day, all of those things is because I'm her. So what do I want that to look and feel like? And for me, it's moving my body 100% of the, well, 98% of the
Yeah.
time.
I love that.
Yeah.
Weaving in a little bit, going back to human design a little bit. So you are an emotional generator, 6-2 emotional generator. And so that sacral is like that workforce energy, life force energy. But what's unique to your chart that I think only 20, my statistic could be wrong, but I think only 20% have this defined ego, defined heart. And it is your willpower, right? And so kind of going back to that discipline piece.
Say that again.
In the ego center, the heart center in human design, I think it's only like 20% of people who have it defined. So, which means you're consistently creating the energy of willpower and self worth comes from within you, right? So, most people hold a lot of shadow around that because they do not have it defined. So, they feel like they have to prove themselves or they can't see things through. That discipline piece can be really challenging because they don't create that energy within them, right? So, I think it's beautiful for you as like a guide or a coach, right? Allowing people to come in and kind of absorb that energy a little bit. It's like you're giving them a piece of your ability to discipline yourself and your willpower and things like that, right? So I would be curious, like when people just energetically, if people find struggle in that discipline and consistency and like showing up, right? What advice do you have for them to begin to then have that discipline to like show up consistently like that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So first of all, I got chills all over my body because I've always thought of myself as being heart chakra led,
Mm,
but I'm heart 100%
yeah.
clairsentient heart chakra. But as you say, the ego center, the heart center, that absolutely resonates. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole on that when we get done here. But to your question about the discipline piece, there's two things that I would say. One is redefine discipline. First of all,
Mm,
discipline is not punishment. And I know that's what it says in, I think, Webster's dictionary, like discipline is punishment and correction for doing something wrong. But discipline is really like identifying what you want the most and protecting it at all costs. That's what discipline
Mm.
is. And even if that doesn't work for you, because sometimes we don't know what we want, right? Sometimes it's like, well, I like the idea, but do I really want? I mean, it's okay to not know. And so then to that, I say, well, fine, let's sit with the idea of discipline, but can we infuse some love into it? Because when you add love and discipline, you wind up with devotion. And
Mm.
having a devotion to yourself is a completely different energy than a discipline. And anyone who's listening to this, I just want you to pause and sit still for a second and say devotion and say discipline. And they're two very different energies. You'll feel the devotion in your heart, you'll
Mm.
feel it. And I think it's easier to practice the devotion to yourself than it is to practice discipline with yourself. And so anything that you would normally pursue with a disciplined, I must attitude, love yourself through that moment, love yourself through that decision, literally infuse, like if, as though you're talking to your child or talking to your pet or talking to somebody you love, infuse love and it turns into a devotion. When we discipline our children, um, we don't do that from a place of you're bad. It comes from a place of love. I'm trying to protect you. I want you, like we our whole heart is like 10 feet ahead of us and talking to our child about whatever it is that we're trying to, correct their behavior on, because it comes from such a strong devotion to that little person and wanting them to have a beautiful experience in life. Apply that to yourself. It's the same energy. It's the exact same energy. And so I find that that helps. And then also another D word is being a disciple to yourself. I find that we don't have discipline or devotion oftentimes because we just don't know ourselves. We just don't know. We know celebrities, we know our bosses' moods, we know our partners' habits, we know everyone else outside of ourselves. We don't know ourselves. And so I invite you, if you struggle with discipline, I invite you to get to know yourself. I invite you to sit with yourself. I invite you to love on yourself, but I invite you into yourself to become a disciple of yourself, study yourself, get to know yourself. Like, and again, just simply by asking questions, it literally opens up the neural pathways in our brain, and answers do find their way to us. But we have to get curious and ask. And so I invite you to learn what it means to be a disciple into yourself. And then actually, I'll say this one last one, which is another D word, which is desire. If you're lacking discipline, if you feel like you're lacking discipline, it's not how bad do you want it, bro, kind of desire. It's more like, but what do you desire? Do you allow the desires of your heart to grow? Like, do you even have anything that will pull you heart, from that heart center to it? I find that it's easy to not be disciplined with something that we don't even want, right?
Mm.
But what do you want? And I guess that kind of goes back to the original definition of discipline, which was, um, deciding what it is that you want the most and protecting it at all costs. That's what discipline is. But it does go back to deciding what you want. What do you desire? And it's ironic that we live in 2025 and it feels like, everything is possible, but yet we feel so personally disempowered. We don't believe that for ourselves. We don't allow desires to grow in our heart. We end up being practical and pragmatic and responsible and rational thinking, and we immediately tamp down on any desire. So of course you're not going to have the discipline that could lead to devotion for you to get the thing, because the desire is not even there. So allow desire to grow in your heart. Again, sit back, close your eyes, and let your heart, like with every beat, let imagine your heart going bigger and bigger and bigger with whatever that desire is. And it's literally an electromagnetic field that is radiating from your heart center that attracts light like back to you. And when you do that, the discipline that it takes to take that inspired action, it feels so much easier. The devotion that you end up having to yourself, because you just love the fuck out of yourself and you deserve what you deserve and you want what you want, it comes so much easier. So, maybe I'll sum all of this up by saying if you struggle with discipline, first get clear on what you desire. Let that live. Like, let your desires live. And don't feel foolish. Don't worry about how they're going to come true. Don't worry about strategy. Don't let all that go. Just dream. Just dream. Another D word, I guess. Just dream freely, and the you'll create the desire to protect that dream through discipline, which will turn into devotion, which will, get you to the place of having your dreams come true.
Mm, I love that so much. That, yeah, getting clear, right, on what you want. I can't. In the beginning of my journey, people would ask me like, "What do you want?" or "Who are you?" was the hardest question to answer. It's like, I don't know,
Yeah.
right? So I think that exploration within is huge. I was just writing about it today, and I was like, I feel like now me now versus me, 7 years ago, 10 years ago. It's like I have so much clarity on who I am and what I'm doing. I might not have all the steps down yet. I might not, have all the pieces coming together yet, but that clarity of like, and I think it's that acceptance of the, I'm air quoting bad because there's nothing bad, but there's shadow parts, right? That I
Yeah.
think that's what we avoid for the longest time is
Yeah.
like, no, but I can't be like that. But what if you just accepted that you are? And then let's move from there.
Yeah.
It's just like so much less resistance. And it's like, okay, I'm going to fuck up in this way and probably going to do it 10 more times. And that's maybe something I have to work on. But instead of like shaming myself for it, if I just accept it and okay, well, next time's an opportunity to move through that, So I love that clarity piece and
Yeah.
in that discipline, right? Because I think that, I look back, I was a smoker for 12 plus years, which is wild. I quit 10 years ago, but
Me
I quit.
too.
Were you really? That I know it's like one of those things where like it feels like such a lifetime ago. I'm like, I used to smoke heavily too. And I like see people smoking now and it's like no shame because I did it for, over a decade, but I'm like, it's just wild that so yeah, I look back to like I quit smoking, I quit alcohol. There are things that I quit that I never thought I had it in me. And kind of going back to that ego center, that heart center that you have defined, I don't have it all open, right? So I look back at that and I think that what it was for me to be able to like show up every day and like consistently have that discipline to be like, no, I'm not going to. It was for me, it was like that feeling of like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And, maybe, I don't know, I wouldn't say it was a lack, but it was the clarity of like, this is what I want to be like. And this doesn't serve that version of
Yeah.
me. So kind of like what you
Yep.
said before, right?
Yeah.
That the future, the you now that kind of whispered in the you back then's ear and was like, follow this when it didn't make sense to anybody else. I think all of those are little threads and little pieces. And I think that's so beautiful to kind of like weave that in where it's like, listen to those pieces because
Yeah.
we're so disconnected from our body and we can't hear what it's telling us if we're not open to receiving and listening and hearing it.
Yeah, being willing. No, exactly. The
Mm.
connection to our body is everything, and being in the present moment, which actually falls into what is that? My fourth and fifth pillar. No, my fifth and sixth pillar of wellness is connection and presence because our body is constantly talking to us, and when one we don't listen to it oftentimes, and then also our future self or our divine self or our favorite self or God's source, universe, spirit, whatever you believe in, ancestors, guides, they're always communicating with us, but we're oftentimes not present enough with ourselves to allow that to penetrate. We're so distracted intentionally most of the time by society, by our own needs and wants and desires. We're distracting ourselves from being with ourselves because we're so uncomfortable with ourselves. And like you said, because we don't call it shadow all the time, but we see that and we just want to distance ourselves so far from that part, those uglier parts of ourselves that we don't accept and don't want to look at, that we disconnect from it all. But the magic, the absolute magic, is the incorporation and the acceptance of all of you. You can't abandon any part of yourself in thinking that's going to, bring you closer to anything of true fulfillment. We have to accept. And I hope they get to a point where we want to accept those parts of us because they are like there's no point in trying to distance or hate them because they just simply are. And so yeah, just allowing ourselves to look at ourselves, like take a good hard honest look at ourselves and love every bit of what we see, because there is no benchmark. I know we have this thing about I love myself with all my imperfections, but I'd like to challenge that, because you'll have to point to me who this perfect person is that we're comparing ourselves to.
Mm.
And so when you look at yourself and you're like, but that's not perfect and that's not perfect, I'm like, well, who is? You know, like that's, it's not anything to compare yourself to. You just are. You just are, and you're beautiful, and you're by design, and really learning to just sit with yourself. You don't have to like it at first. You know, I get that that's a process, but be willing to look at it, right? Be willing
Yeah.
to sit with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that analogy of like the tree, right? The roots are so deeply embedded in the darkness, right? It's you can't see anything, and then the tree is like all the beautiful things that we can see, but we don't see everything underneath that's just
Ooh,
like,
that's a good one.
in it. So I think it's to remember like all those parts of us, it is all just parts of us, and it's what we do with that. What are we choosing to believe about it, is I
Yeah.
think the key to that, I guess, is incorporating that in there.
It is. And I like to think about, the parts of me that I'm not, the greatest fan of. I like to they're what's the word? Portals. They're portals.
Mm-hmm.
They're opportunities. Like when I look at those parts of me and I look at them clearly and open-eyed and curious, it's literally stepping through a portal to a better version or my favorite version of myself by simply willing to look at that part of me. And I swear, every time we turn our head, we're like going farther and farther away from the life that we want, the version of ourselves that we want, the like achieving our dreams and our goals. Like we're moving further away. And as soon as I look at it, I'm like, and again, don't have to love it, but look at it. It's literally like stepping through a portal. It's literally like stepping through a portal. And then you get an opportunity to decide, like, who do you want to be? You don't like whatever that thing is. So what do you want? Like that is, again, another portal, another opportunity for you to show up, because oftentimes we're just on autopilot, caught up in the momentum of life and problems and friends and other people's opinions and labels and miseducation. We're just caught up and we're just going, 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 going. We don't often pause long enough to say, well, who am I? What are all of the parts of me? What do I like? What don't I like? And begin that exploration. It goes back to what you were saying, that deciding. Um, but those are opportunities to decide. They're moments to pause, become aware, get conscious and intentional with our thoughts, behaviors, and actions going forward. I mean, every shadow moment thing you don't like are really, they're really beautiful opportunities. Really
Mm-hmm.
beautiful opportunities.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And I think that all of this that we're talking about, right? Like health, fitness, movement, everything, it's like it's so much about like coming into your body, right? And I think that if we I think everybody has a dream, everybody has a desire, has a version of themselves that they want. Everyone wants to get better, right? But we're held back by, like you said, like being in this routine, being in the everyday like monotony of life, right? And it's like if we can come into connection with our body, we
Yeah.
can feel when it wants to shift. We can
Yes.
feel when we are resistant to something. And I mean, this is a whole other topic that we don't have to go into now or anything like that. But I just think that coming back to like the food that we consume a lot of times, it's
Oh my
numbing
God.
us. I mean, not even including alcohol or anything else that we put into our bodies, it's numbing us. And we're so disconnected from who we are that we can't possibly even begin to hear the signals from our body or what it's telling us. So I think it's such a huge conversation and a huge topic. And I do believe that, things are beginning to shift. People are starting to
Yes.
notice, certain chemicals and dyes or whatever being banned from food. So I think that people are waking up a little bit to how toxic our food system is. But all of
Yeah.
this is just really, I think, getting into that space in yourself, right? And,
It
and to
is.
be able to do that work, because it's not easy to see all your shadows. Like it's overwhelming. And you want to, like, I can't tell you how many days I've like cried over it or just like felt so bad or had realizations from my childhood. And it's painful, right? But I
Yeah.
think that it's also, there's so much beauty in it to be able to shed all of that, and like this year is the year of the snake, right? So this year is about shedding.
It
So it's like if
is.
there's ever a time to come into yourself, it's like right now is it.
This is the year, 100%. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you that the piece about food is so real. The energy transfer of food is real. Food alchemy is real. I've
Mm,
battled demons a good portion of my life, and I've been very public about my past struggles with mental health. It's on both sides of my family. It's gotten, down that line really, really bad. And I thought, well, it's inevitable. Depression, suicide, all of those things were going to be in my life as well, because it's part of my family, until I learned about food alchemy and the energy
mm,
transfer of food. And I battled my way out of depression by drinking green drinks. And I'm not trying to give medical advice. Please see a professional for this. But when I
mm,
was prescribed meds, I said no. I didn't, I knew that was not the solution for me. And so I started drinking green juice in the morning and a green smoothie in the afternoon. And I did that for years and years and years, understanding that I was transferring energy to my body. You are what you eat isn't this quippy little saying. It's a real thing that it changes the molecular structure, the fabric for actual cells in DNA by the food that we eat. And in understanding that, I was like, well, then I want source energy. I want sun source energy. You know, fruits and vegetables absorb 100% of sun energy. That's what photosynthesis is. And then when we eat those fruits and vegetables, we get about 10 to 12%. And that's literally like a direct impact on how I felt. And I did that for, again, many, many years because I understood it was working. It didn't always feel like it was working, but I knew that it was. And I'm a testament to that, here all these years later, that what you put into your body affects your mood, it affects your thoughts, it affects literally like every emotion, it affects everything. And so anyone listening who doesn't know where to start, I call them high vibrational meals, but start with foods that have seen the light of day before, and just understand that everything has energy, including our food. And so if our food isn't sun source energy, understand that it is some kind of energy. I don't know what it is. And it might have something to do with the fact that many of us walk around feeling blah and not knowing what's wrong with us, but knowing something is wrong because we're consuming an energy, literally, that's making up our cells going forward of this blah, manufactured, not natural energy. It's a really, like you said, it's a rabbit hole. It's a whole
yeah,
nother thing.
I know.
But I really want to impart that, and it's something that we have access to. I think I'll end with this. That one of the things that excites me about the body and food, alchemy as part of that, is that we have access to it all the time. We don't have to go to a church for spiritual connection. We don't have to go anywhere to have that fulfillment that we're looking for. Everything we do with our body is a sacred spiritual act because our body houses the divine. So every meal, every time you go to sleep, every sip of water, that is a spiritual practice. And we have access to that 24/7. So take like advantage of the fact that you live in a temple, and let these practices, let your everyday behaviors, your self-care practices or otherwise, let those things be a spiritual practice. And I promise you, it will take root, and that divinity will continue to express bigger and louder and bolder, through your physical vessel, and it makes life magical.
Mm, yeah. Kind of tacking on to that, I love that our body is divine because we are source, we are God. It's all within us, right? Like I said to my son the
Yeah,
other day, he said something about the stars, and I was like, we have them inside of you. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, you have a whole universe. Like you are stars, you're stardust. Like we
yes,
are all
Stardust.
connected, right? And
Yes,
he's like,
yes.
whoa. But like
I love
in
it.
that, I think about, I can't remember where I heard this, but somebody said at some point, or I read it in a book, or I don't know, something, but it was like, if you imagine like how much we abuse our bodies now and how much it still works for us, like how incredible the body is, imagine what would happen if you actually treated it right.
Yeah.
And something about that has always stuck with me when I think about my body. And I'm like, man, like I did for most of my 20s, I abused my
Most of us
body
do.
so hard, and
Yeah.
it's like, there is still an opportunity to course correct, and I think that this conversation is so beautiful in so many ways, and it's really empowering to bring people back into themselves.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
would, just to kind of like sum it up, we talked about so much, like what in your words, like if you had just like one definition of what self-care looks like or what self-care is, I guess for you,
Mm.
what would that be?
Wow. Why don't I have an immediate answer to that one? That's a great question. Um, You know, here's how I like to look at it. It's not a matter of if we're doing self care, it's a matter of what end of the spectrum that we're on. You're caring for yourself. Self care, whether we think of it that way or not, is a daily practice. You have a self. How are you caring for it? You have the I give no fucks in, and then you have I give all of the fucks in. Where are you on that spectrum? Self care is not an option. You're doing it.
Mm.
Is where do you want to, how do you want that to look? I think that's what we need to accept, is that you are practicing self-care. Is it working for you?
Mm. Yeah.
That's it. Is it working for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been so good, so fascinating. What are you working on now? If there's any way, if there's anything
Yeah.
specifically that you're offering, how
Yeah.
people can find you, how they can work with you, all the things, let them know.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So yes, actually today, I don't know when this is going to air, but 2/22, my book is released. It's called The Body Ministry. It's a playbook for women venturing on their health and fitness journey because for those of us who know, who've been in the gym, we know that the hour in the gym is actually the easy part. It's the other 23 of the hours of the day of self-care that we struggle with, that we don't have someone coaching us through, that we don't have guidance on, that internal transformation that supports the external transformation. And so my playbook walks women through 12 weeks of that. And I also just launched my community, the Self-Care Collective, to help women get that regular, everyday, slow, steady drip of self-care practices, where you're in a community of like-minded women who are also busy moms, entrepreneurs, corporate women who are like, I know I've got all of these demands pulling at me, but I want to prioritize my self care. Where are the women who are growing and healing and evolving and doing good things for themselves? They're in the self care collective. And then I also do once a month donation based workshops, because I believe self care is free. It's free, and I want to make it accessible to everybody with no barriers to entry. So once a month I do a self-care workshop, which is donation based, and so I say come one, come all. um, and those are the major ways that you can work with me, and all of that can be found on oriara.com, oriara.com. And then I'll just end with this, that I like to remind women that what really kind of sparked for me was understanding that when you have a calling on your life, you must protect it with your health. And we all have a calling, whether that's as a mom, an entrepreneur, a best friend, a daughter, an employee, someone at your church, but we all have a calling on our life. And no one is asking you to die for that. We often hear women say, I die for my kids, or I'll die for my clients, or I die for my partner. And it's like, sis, no one's asking that of you. Will you live healthy for them? That's the call to action.
Mm.
That's the
I
call to
love that.
action.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course.